Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of August 22nd. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We're going to start off the meeting with just a couple of quick positives before we go into regular agenda. If you haven't been downtown behind Eveready and Rockwell Park, please take a ride down there. We're going to have a grand opening and an unveiling of that, but the new boardwalk down there is just absolutely beautiful. It continues to connect the waterway over there, so public access will be there forever. But public access doesn't necessarily mean you have to stand on the shore anymore. You can kind of walk right over the water now. It is absolutely beautiful. To that end, and we'll talk about this at the end of the meeting, but there is some, there's a lot of work going on around town. I've had my own eyes on it, and I've had a lot of residents reach out to me commending the fine work, and I attribute a lot of that to the administrator. Cedar Crest, which is off Fatima, the park there, has some new seats for the swings, and there's new chips for the playground. And then Jenny Lane, Coelho Park, I know everybody's familiar with it. And I'd like to take a side note on that. All of Bristol is important. And sometimes it feels like we focus a lot downtown, and as I just started off the meeting that way. But there is no place that isn't important in Bristol, and I know that the focus continues to improve that. I know Coelho Park had some wonderful improvements. But we'll talk about it at the end. But if you drive by some of the buildings, including the schools, our fire stations are having some brickwork done. The point is that we're supposed to be doing this, and we are, and it looks wonderful, and it keeps Bristol the way I believe Councilman Harrishoff's line was tip-top and ship-shape and in Bristol fashion. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, my colleagues. Yeah. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council. The first item on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item is the submission of minutes of previous meetings. This is for the council meeting of August 1st. It is the item A1.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next is the first reading of Ordinance 2018-14, and this is to remove half-hour parking spaces on Bradford Street in front of what used to be Sam's Pizza.
Motion, this constitutes the first reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next is the first item in your licensing section. This is the petition of Courtney Poissant, the president of the Mosaico CDC, requesting one-day dancing and entertainment license for October 7th, 2018. You have recommendations provided by the town administrator, fire chief, and also chief of police to approve with certain conditions. I believe the petitioner also provided some supplemental information, FYI.
Based on all the recommendations, make a motion to approve the one-day dancing and entertainment license.
I'll second for discussion.
Welcome.
I just had a couple questions.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me remind everyone that if you could, at the end of the conversation, write your name and address right on that pad there.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So, thank you for doing this again. I just noticed one change, though.
Couple of changes.
There's a couple changes, but the one that concerned me, which shouldn't be a problem, you're asking for the one-day dancing and entertainment license, but you're going to have a beer and wine garden.
We're hoping, yes.
You're hoping. So I just want to go through the clerk and the solicitor to ask if, I know it's October 7th, if this council has to, if they have to have another petition for that, or what umbrella does that fall under?
There is an ordinance that allows the basically the town clerk and the town administrator to issue those licenses to qualified nonprofits. The council approved that in 1977. Okay, and the condition, as I've explained in the past, is that if there is one of those requested and it's an event open to the public and there's going to be entertainment, then they have to ask you for the one-day dancing and entertainment license, which they've done.
Okay.
So if you approve this, effectively, it approves that
Okay.
also. But
Great.
it's already in the works. If they weren't having the noisy thing, then they wouldn't have had to be here.
People call it noise.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification.
If you could keep the technicals down, we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
I think that with this event, we're just trying to make it a bigger and better event with more attractions for people of all ages. That's why we kind of tried to go with a little bit of a car show. We'll still have the the kid games. We did very, very well with that. The entertainment was good. We had a lot of vendors. We're trying to do a chili cook-off because we did so well with the Stuffies and Stella's event. We raised about $9,800 when it came to that.
Congrats.
So, I mean, everything that we've done, we really try to go by the books, and we take it very seriously. So, again, we will do the bracelets where the beer garden would be. There would be a tip-certified bouncer there checking everyone's IDs. You would get a bracelet there. And if you were drinking, you would have to obviously stay in that tent.
Courtney, could you share with the public, assuming they've never been there and never experienced it, what should they expect there?
A ton of fun, some great food, all kinds of vendors. People from the town of Bristol, people from Warren, different restaurants. We have tons of fun kid games. We have raffles donated by all kinds of other Bristol restaurants and vendors. We really try to make it a town.
It's really a
Oriented
celebration.
event.
It's a
Yes.
neighborhood celebration. It started off as a neighborhood celebration because we got the new fence, and we did so well, and people said, let's do this again, and it's really become a big celebration for Wood Street to celebrate its own pride, its own, and to sort of take responsibility for building and improving itself and building its own community, and that's really what it is. But it's definitely open to the public because now they've become sort of fundraisers also, and that money all goes back to the Wood Street. As you know, we're using it to paint the light poles and put the medallions up. We just got another grant to put in more trash cans down on the south end near Pomodoro and other things. And our goal is to see if we can get some of those decorative light poles down that end of town too. But we've heard from Diane and that those are expensive, so we got some money to raise.
Which we will do.
But still, everything that you've been doing, and like the chairman said in the beginning of the meeting about the downtown area, and for much of a period of time, we talk about the revitalization of Wood Street, which you're trying to do and accomplish, so we thank you for that. So.
Absolutely. When you see the trash cans and the bike racks, I think that you're going to be very pleasantly surprised. They're absolutely beautiful. It really pulls together a lot of the history of what Wood Street is, and I really think that it reflects in the choices that we made with the emblems and the trash cans and the bike racks.
Excellent.
I think it's going to be great.
Any other questions?
No, I just think it's a great event, and it really highlights the community, and I think it exposes Wood Street and brings more light to it. It's a
Yes.
great event.
Thank you very
And
much.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a little further clarification on Mr. Stewart's question. Had this been on public property, then the council would have had to approve.
Thank you.
Because it's on private property, that ordinance allows it to happen without that specific approval.
Thank you.
Okay?
Can I just one quick question? No question, you guys are doing a great job on these events, and I tried so hard to get some of those stuffy people to do the Harbor Fest, but none of them want. We had no restaurants participate in that one last week. But is the chili cook-off going to be for restaurants, or is it going to be for private, individuals?
We're going to reach out more to restaurants. In our opinion, we just feel like it's a little safer when you do it with people that are food safety certified. Not that everybody doesn't make wonderful chili, but with liability, I just think it's a little safer to go with the restaurants, and then that also gives the restaurants exposure, and it's nice we have partnerships and friendships with a lot of other Bristol and Warren restaurants that's what it should be about. It should be friendly competition with each other, and
Mayor, are you
all towards
volunteering to
good
be a
cause.
judge?
Anybody can be a
I don't have to
judge.
know that. I think it was, the way they did the stuffy one, there wasn't judges like the way they
was
had
a
it
ballot.
downtown. It was like anybody who participates marks the ballot. It's like people's
Yep,
choice.
Same
Yeah.
here.
And And it was really good. I think it was like nice to have like some of the, Warren, like you had Bristol Warren and everybody at
Yeah.
that. So that was a great model, I think. And there was like a lot of, good events. I'm very happy to hear how much money you raised at that, too.
Yeah, that's
Excellent.
great.
So we have a motion and a second to approve.
Can I ask, Mr. Tisker, is your daughter interested in selling slushies?
She may be.
All right, put her,
I will put the inquiry out there.
thank you.
Can I just ask one quick question as a follow-up to that? So I don't know what you're charging. I can look at the materials for vendors to come. But at the at the Waterfront Festival, there was a young entrepreneur similar to Mr. Tisker's, Councilman Tisker's kids, daughters that have done that. And I was telling her about different events that were coming up. She's just going into 8th grade, and she makes these really cool driftwood sailboats.
Oh, cool.
And so I don't know if she'd be able to with the school, school schedule and so forth, but if there's is there a discount rate for like young entrepreneurs that are just getting started?
Absolutely. Our fee for a table is only $25, which is very minimum. We try to always keep it cost-effective for everyone. But absolutely, we did a discount for the Boy Scouts. We would absolutely do
Yeah.
a discount for some young entrepreneurs. We
Yeah.
would love that.
Yeah. I thought it was cool to see her down there.
That's great.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Make sure you fill in your names, if you would.
We did.
Thank you so much.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, this is actually a similar request, this time from the Easter Seals RI for what they're calling their Red, White, and Brew event at the Harrisoff Marine Museum, request for one-day dancing and entertainment license. You have the recommendations provided by the Fire Chief, Town Administrator, and Chief of Police to approve with certain conditions.
Upon all the recommendations and ordinances, state laws, I make a motion we approve for the date specified for the event.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item E1. This was the council requested a review of the circumstances of the new arrangement at the beach house, which was approved in May 23rd. You have recommendations from the town administrator, fire chief, and chief of police.
So this was put on from May to review if the improvements were positive, but no improvements happen at this point in time, which is okay. Did you want to, Mr. Administrator?
nothing's
No?
happened.
Oh, okay. But I know our economic coordinator, Chris Vitale, had reached out to the restaurant on the request of the administrator. Could you share, you reached out to them and nothing's happened at this point in time, which is okay. We just wanted to make sure that they knew what was going on with us.
Yeah, certainly. So when I made my visit down there, I did speak with one of their employees. The owners, as well as the manager, were not there at that time. However, they indicated that it most likely would not be done for this year, probably for early next season. So I know that there was a plan to review it on tonight's agenda, but there are no updates at this time. They haven't done any work.
So I verified with the clerk is that when we renew the license in November, at that point in time, they have another year until as we continue to renew, so we can review this when we feel it's necessary when it gets done. So it's just a receive and file.
Okay.
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next is the second reading for adoption of the request of Raymond Green, 9 School Street, who requested accessible parking space in front of his residence. You have the recommendations provided by the Town Administrator, Public Works Director, and Chief of Police, all to approve.
Motion to approve the second reading for adoption?
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is from Susan Rancourt on behalf of Road Races and Events Incorporated in partnership with the Bristol 4th of July Committee. Request council consideration to hold their 5th annual half marathon race on June 29th, 2019. You have recommendations provided by the Town Administrator, Director of Public Works, and Chief of Police to approve with certain conditions.
Motion to approve with those conditions?
Second?
There's a motion and a second. I should tell you that Susan reached out to me, and she couldn't be here tonight, but that was not a reflection on her want to get this approved. And I told her that we had all approvals or suggested approvals, and it seemed like it was going to be fine and been a great event thus far.
Cool.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item is the, petition of Richard Giannini on behalf of the Dreadnought Hook, Ladder, and Hose Company Number 1, request for the use of the Maritime Center and permission to sell and serve alcoholic beverages for their annual awards and banquet dinner to be held on September 22nd, 2018. You have recommendation from the Town Administrator and Harbor Master, also the Town Administrator and Fire Chief, and the Chief of Police to approve with certain conditions.
Motion to approve with those conditions?
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And finally, from the Bristol Merchants Association, as you will recall at your last meeting, or rather the meeting before that, you approved their State Street Fair. They realized afterwards that they had not asked specifically for a rain date. So this is to add a rain date to the previously approved State Street Fair. You have recommendations from the Town Administrator, Director of Public Works, Fire Chief, and Chief of Police to approve with certain conditions.
Motion to approve the rain date of October 7th.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item are the public service appointments for August. You have the Harbor Commission Advisory Committee. There are 2 positions available with terms to expire in August 2021. You have Owen O'Rourke of 41 Fales Road seeking reappointment. You have Edward J. Quinn of 38 Anchorage Court seeking reappointment. And you also have Stephen Gennario and Patricia McLaughlin who would like to also be considered for appointment.
Now, is there a limit on this committee? It's the advisory commission, right?
I believe
There is.
There is?
there is
We've expanded that before,
Yeah.
right?
There is a limit, and I believe there are 2 seats that are available at this time.
Given the proposed applicants, we thank the ones that are seeking reappointment, but can we schedule an interview with Mr. Gennario and Ms. McLaughlin when we do our interviews? I believe we have some pending as well. Maybe we could get them all in at once.
We, at the end of our agenda, is a proposed workshop for September 25th.
Great.
That would seem most appropriate that we could schedule. Maybe we can make that at 6 for interviews and 7 for the regular meeting. Again, it's proposed, so we'll get there at that point. So I heard a motion.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next, we have the Post-Retirement Benefits Fund Board of Trustees, with term to expire in August of 2021. You have Anthony H. Rigo, Jr. of 1176 Hope Street, who is interested in being reappointed, and a new applicant in Charles Kellner of 10 Hope Street, also seeking appointment.
Again, Mr. Clerk, if we could add Mr. Kellner to the interview process for this position as well.
And we're just going to be interviewing the new people, right?
Yes,
Okay.
unless my colleagues...
No, that makes total
I mean,
sense.
these sitting members, so...
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next is Conservation Commission. This is to fill an unexpired term to expire in December 2020. You have William Poutre of 17 Sullivan Lane, who is interested in appointment, and you also have another applicant that is already in the hopper for interview.
Excellent.
So with that, Mr. Clerk, I think you know what I'm going to say.
I do.
We can schedule for Mr. Portray as well.
Thanks, Ed. Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next is a ratification of the recommendation of Santa Matroni to serve on the Rogers Free Library Board of Trustees.
This would be acceptance of the recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, technically, you are appointing the person. Usually, you rely on their recommendation, and then you ratify their recommendation.
Just move to appoint him.
Upon that ratification of the Board of Trustees, make a motion that we make the appointment of Santa Matroni.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. As I always say at this point, thank you. This council and the town appreciate the hard work of the boards and commissions. It is sometimes a daunting task. Most of the time it goes unthanked, but we appreciate what you do, and it shows out there in the public. So thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, this is item H1, our first item under old business. This is continued from your January 31st meeting. I think that should be 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry about the date problem. But I'm sorry, no, it's 18.
18.
What am I?
No, you're right.
What am I thinking? I'm already jumping ahead.
You just want the election over. What was that?
Wishful thinking. This
That'll be the
was-
next update.
Yeah. Councilman Stewart's request to have an update on the construction easements and final draft of the Tanyard Brook Phase 2.
So I know we had an exciting event that we already explained to the public of, what all the easements have been ascertained, and we're underway, and I believe our Director of Public Works can give us a slight overview of the beginning phases of this exciting time of Project Tanyard Brook 2.
Correct.
So-
We've moved it from the planning and development portion of the project into the actual construction phase. All the easements were secured. The project went out to bid. A contractor was selected, and I'm pretty sure you folks had briefed the public on that. The contractor has begun mobilization. We're going through what we call the RFI, Request for Information, and submitting of shop drawings for all of the pieces of the project that will be put together. They started to mark some and identify some of the trees along the alignment of the new culvert. They'll be coming down over the next week or two. I think many of the folks in the center of town will start to see some of the construction operations begin next week and into the first week of September. Once the whole site gets prepped, right now the culvert itself is being constructed. A manufacturer has been selected. As you know, the concrete will take some time to cure. Once that takes place, they'll start the delivery of those items shortly thereafter. Then the installation process will take place. We're in the process right now. I mentioned to the council president a little while ago that the trailer has been placed on the land adjacent to the DPW Public Works that will function as the trailer for the Tanyard Brook project, which will have all the records, on-site records, and also the other Ferry Road project, which is in the Water Pollution Control Department's hands. So those both function out of that same location. We'll also stockpile any of the soils that are excavated and need to be tested per DEM requirements when we place the new culvert to ensure compliance with DEM regulations. So you're going to see a lot of things start to occur over the next few weeks. While you won't see any of the final product for a bit of time, at least you'll see forward progress, and it will take place pretty quickly. I suspect most of the culvert will be placed before the winter shutdown.
Director McBride, are they going to work through the winter?
At this point, the plan is not to work through the
Not
winter.
through the winter, okay.
Their goal, and I'm not trying to tip their hat or hold them to a schedule, but they'd like to have most of that culvert in place to get us through the winter. Then they'll come back to do the final wrap-up and final site preparation work, prior to them demobilizing next year. But they really want to do the bulk of the big stuff this year if they can.
Thank you.
Certainly, thank you, Director. I know all of us in this chamber have worked towards this. It took a long time, but as we keep mentioning about infrastructure, and nationally, if you keep up with the municipalities on how important it is for storm mitigation and just infrastructure alone, and here in Bristol, even though you're going to see the progress, I would imagine us as colleagues for the funding of this project will keep vigorously trying to secure additional funding, so that will be taken care of as well. So,
And as you know, one of the big items is the grant portion of the project, which helped us move this thing into the construction phase, will be a big element as we do the construction portion of it.
and with that, through the administration and Diane in your department, it's the shovel-ready projects, as we always say, that, why these things move for the town of Bristol, so we should
I just
be
want
proud.
to point out that Diane was very quick to pitch it over to me now. So she's been working on it for a long, long time. So now it's time to put it in the ground. And I think her hard work and perseverance throughout the last few years pushed it over the top. So I think it was good.
She didn't end with a comment of, "You could deal with Eddie," did she? So I'll make a motion. Thank you, Director and the Administrator and my colleagues. Make a motion to receive and file.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Item H2 is continued from your August 1st meeting. This was the petition of Scott Christopher of 116 Hopeworth Avenue and others, request council consideration to install a fall-away stop at Hopeworth Avenue and Berry Lane. You have also some supplemental information which has been provided. In one case, a letter from Joseph Silvera of 95 Hopeworth Avenue, who supports the proposal, and you have a recommendation provided by the Director of Public Works.
So at our last meeting, Chief had mentioned that he wanted to, or requested extra time to do some more research on this, and I understand that happened. Could you share your thoughts on this, Chief?
Sure. As I asked, we extend the period of time so we could assign the mobile trailer, message trailer, where we're able to gather some data, which we have over the last 14 days. The average speed there is about 24 miles an hour, so there is no indication of speeding that would be a concern, even though we have increased the patrols, and we're going to continue to. That being said, the lieutenant met on scene with the director. We're going to put some new signage up, strictly enforced, and we're going to continue to monitor that area, along with a couple of other signs, park, playground area, and a couple other things. The lieutenant did meet, and the officers, with a couple of the residents there. It appeared that they were satisfied with what we're doing right now. As you know, by federal and state manual of uniform traffic devices, stop signs do not reduce speed. That is to control intersections. And our goal is, if there's a speed issue there, we need to address it, and we're going to. We're going to aggressively monitor the speed there, as we do always with the trailer, and once the trailer is not there, we're going to educate, and then we'll be enforcing any speeding that takes place there. There's no secret that I would tend to believe that 90% of the people that drive in that area are residents. Unless they're making a delivery, there's no throughway on Hopeworth that I'm aware of. So anyone that's going down there is either a resident, a visitor, or a delivery. So I think this is something we may be able to control. If it appears that, there's a problem with that intersection, and if it met the criteria, which there's a criteria that's laid out, that is a minimal amount of accidents, speeding issues, and other concerns, then I would have no problem with making a recommendation for a four-way stop or a two-way stop. But at this point, there's no reason for us to move forward with it. But as I said, I wanted to take the time to monitor the speed there. With the trailer, I think it's given us a clear report that there is no major speed issues there. However, once in a while, I'm sure that someone's going to speed there. And if we're there, we're going to stop them. They're going to be educated if they're from the area the first time, maybe the second time. The third time, 3 strikes, you're out. I assure you that they'll be issued a citation. That's my recommendation at this time.
Chief, I know thank you for doing the study. I appreciate it. But what did you, just back up, what did you talk about with signage? You talked about a little bit of signage.
Okay. We're going to post speed signs in that area.
Perfect.
And beneath it will be strictly enforced.
Great.
So they're aware that we're serious about it. There's also a playground, as we're all aware, down the end. So I've made a recommendation to the lieutenant after reading his report and speaking to the highway director that we put a playground in area sign there also.
Great.
We don't want to start sign pollution, but if there's a way to educate the motorists that there's no reason for you to be traveling any higher than the speed limit there, we strongly are trying to get the message out to them.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, and your department for doing this, and also Director McBride, and I don't pretend to know all the traffic control device regulation laws federally, but taking that into consideration with the same speed limit sign but strictly enforced, I'm just curious on the assessment of which areas get those signs versus normal signs. And I guess just we're not creators of this by the federal standards, but I'm like, then why don't we just have that on all the signs? You know what I mean? Because I'm just looking down the future now of, you know, the caution of a lot of residents and whatnot. So,
If I may, Councilman, I think, you know, I've worked closely with the police department on this when we went through the analysis, and to answer your question, look at the type of road that Hopeworth is relative to, say, Jenny Lane, a side street, a typical local side street. You're not going to post a 25-mile-an-hour strictly enforced speed limit sign there. However, Hopeworth is a straight road. It has a pretty good vertical drop on it, so it encourages people to drive faster if they have or may. I think the report that the PD did on the speed assessment points out that they didn't find any particular big problem, but that road is likely to do so. There are other roads in town that I'm working with the lieutenant from police department to maybe look at doing that in some of these other areas. So I would look at it as a local collector road, where maybe one of those roads that we would put a strictly enforced sign on it to reinforce the fact that it is very important that this particular speed limit in this location be maintained because of the residents, the densely populated area, as opposed to a side street that you don't have that higher volume of traffic.
Thank
so
you
I think
for
that hopefully answers your question.
Yeah, it did, and I thank both departments. I would think, though, for me personally, and it doesn't really reflect the review at all, but I would like for that signage to go up, and I would like to continue this for 2 meetings and have more time with that change and assessment of that road personally. So that's my position.
Can I just ask, when are you anticipating getting the signs up? And would there be like a children playing or crossing kind of sign as well before that intersection on both sides?
Keep in mind now, we're talking about regulatory signs, which is an enforceable sign or a speed limit sign, versus a warning sign, which would be the children playing, which is a black and yellow type placard. Right. 2 different types of events. One's a warning sign for motorists, and the other one is an enforceable one. The signs I hope to have in this week that I've worked with the police department on. We ordered those as soon as we went through the assessment, and I'm actually going to have, you know, some in stock that if we find another area that warrants it, we'll be able to put them up to work with the PD in the areas they think needs it. As far as the playground signs, I'll work with the council or the community to put them up wherever they deem necessary. You know, and I think we're all cognizant about the number of signs we have in the town, but some of them are warranted. And I know that the town administrators approached me about putting the slow children playing signs, and I've got those on order, and I'm hoping I get those this week. I ordered a stock of those as well, because there's a couple areas that generate that need for it. So to answer your question, Councilwoman, I'm hoping to have those signs this week, and if I get them in, then we'll get them up as quickly as we can.
And that would be one of the signs you'd be putting in this area?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think this guy this gentleman made some very good points about like kids getting off the bus and crossing and lack of sidewalks and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, the crossing signs that I think you're referring to are strictly designated for crosswalk crossing signs.
No, I'm not specifically talking, I'm just talking about in general the concerns in that area. Yep. Like when, as he points out, when you're coming up from the bottom of the street, you're passing all the wooded area, and all of a sudden then you get in this sort of more densely populated,
right,
all kinds of cross streets. So I do think that that's a valid point, and that's something we need to look at, because we have many streets, as you know, I don't have to tell anybody here, that run very, very long distances, and they're pretty straight shots, and it's easy to just like pick up speed, especially if they're up and down hills.
Exactly, and as I stated, we're working very closely with the police department they'll do the assessment of the needs, and then we'll place the signs as warranted. Keep in mind, Hopeworth's a perfect example. You get down towards the bottom, you cross through the wooded section in the middle there, and then you get to that park environment. That's a particular concern. And I can think of another road on the other end of town, a similar situation with a long straight road with a park on the road itself, where kids are playing all the time. So there is a particular need for those locations, and we'll certainly sign them as we feel appropriate, as quickly as we can. That's the plan.
So I agree with what was said. I agree with Councilman Stewart that we can, maybe the end of October continues through then, and that'll give us enough time, or would seem it would give us enough time to see the success of the signage, or if it is not successful, what next steps we need to take.
If my colleagues would agree to that, that's what I would like. I would like to continue this, and I thank the two departments for the ongoing progress, and we can assess it 2 meetings, which is the end of October, you said? Whatever's the last.
Two
would be
is October 3rd.
So
Yeah,
the
so
end
maybe
would
the end.
So
be,
the 24th?
would be
Yeah.
safer. Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Chairman.
I'll second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second. I'll just add one thing. I wanted to give, instead of an edict, I liked what happened here, and I absolutely think that needs to continue, is the conversation versus this is what we're going to do. It was a conversation with the people that are affected by it and said, this is what we're thinking about doing, and got agreement with it. And hats off, because that's just a nicer way of doing business. So, and hearing the concerns and sharing what we're doing, not telling them what we're going to do. So, hats off. So, we have a motion and a second to continue to our October 24th meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, this is something that was brought up under Councilman Tiska's prerogative on August 1st. This was a status update of the tangible tax levies on local businesses.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we've received today from the solicitor some guidance on the tangible property tax. The reason for my bringing up this topic in my prerogative at the last council meeting was from conversations that I've had with a few business owners, but also over the years, past tax assessors and current, about a desire to at least look at it. I think something we need to consider is first identifying what the problem is, if there is one. And I think in order to do that, maybe it's the workshop format. But I think it's important that we as a council hear from the tax assessor and administration on the workings of this tax within the town hall, but also hear from our economic development coordinator about his view on if this is something that either through a survey of businesses or a series of conversations, is this something that actually affects businesses in a negative way? And if it does, is there something that we can do to change that? And I think we should also have an opportunity for businesses to address this council in a format which can tell us firsthand some anecdotal stories about this tax. Clearly, other communities have looked at this tax in past enabling legislation, allowing them to modify their ordinances on how they charge it and who they charge it to. Communities like Narragansett take a broad approach, just passing legislation allowing them to give exemptions under a certain amount. That's what I would recommend is considering legislation, as we did with the fireman's tax credit, that allows us as a council to further consider a very specialized, detailed approach on doing a pilot program on some sort of relief or abatement. So I think we should look at first working with our solicitor for some enabling legislation, and then further through a conversation, through a workshop format, come up with some specific ordinance changes which could, hopefully, will solve a problem that is identified through a workshop format. So I throw that out there, and I know we have another workshop we're going to schedule tonight, but I think maybe at the next council meeting we can look at scheduling another workshop. It might be too much meat to go over in one, but I think this is an important topic to continue to talk about.
Could Chris, through the administrator's office, start to gather the data from the local businesses to see how much of an issue it is? Or maybe you've already started doing some of that?
Yeah, so I've started just putting out initial feelers to get feedback on that. I think that it would be really helpful that when we do set a date, I can push that out to the different organizations and business owners so that they can attend. And then in the meantime, I've also had conversations with Julie this past week just to get some figures on how much we collect in tangible taxes, and then just doing my own research as to what options we have, to, as Andy said, options to reduce it or, make it more specific or eliminate it. But yeah, once we set a date, I definitely want to bring business owners in on it.
Can I just ask one other quick question? Lou may recall this. I'm trying to remember, did we, I feel like this issue had come up in the past, not that long ago, like maybe within the last 5, 6, 7 years. Do you recall that? And did we not do anything with it, or did we make some minor changes?
You're correct. Chris Belair had brought it up, and we had discussion, very light, call it high-level discussions on it, but nothing more went from that. Correct.
Okay, is that what happened? Okay, thank you.
Well, I think for the longest time, and that's why we proposed the creation of your position, and many of us in this chamber, again, with a lot of groups about how we make an inviting environment for Bristol economically with our businesses and that relationship, and we could go on and on about regulations. We've been there and done that. But to Councilman Tiska's point is we already made an assessment of all our business properties throughout town, potential properties. What's important, I feel, is something he mentioned is, when talking with the business owners, if there's some concern from a business owner with their future anticipation of their growth, I think it's important, and this isn't to step on anyone's toes because we're a team, I think it's crucial that there's a roundtable that's set up between yourself, the administrator, and this council right away with those business owners before they tell us that they're leaving. We need to be more creative like that. The communication has to be together. And that's just my personal opinion as a councilor, because those are important factors of how we have to, hold our businesses here and make that environment. So just going forward, I think that's just food for thought. So.
Well, I think that the important thing, too, is to make the personal contact with all the businesses, because there's some businesses that just go about what they're doing, they're committed to the community, but every so often you'll hear from them because they're watching everyone else complain, and they're getting something in other companies who have been long established or not. And I just want to make sure that, I think you are, reaching out to everyone that's out there that knows that they can come forward with an issue, that we want to make sure if they're able to expand, that they continue to do that in this community as well.
Yeah. Right, and I just think that, regularly reviewing our policies on it shows that we are committed to our businesses.
Yes.
So I'm definitely looking forward to scheduling a workshop and bringing some of those businesses along for a good discussion.
There's, if I may, Mr. Administrator, there's no doubt that the tax brings in a significant amount of dollars to the town, and the idea isn't to lose this revenue. I think the idea of looking at it is so that we can, for example, look at our storefronts downtown and the challenge that we have to fill those storefronts. And if we are, as a town, are able to communicate to new businesses that when that restaurant moves into a new storefront or store, their tables or their cash register won't be charged the tax. That's what we're doing. But in other communities it will. It demonstrates, I think, potentially a small net loss in that tax, but what it will give is a huge surge to our meals and tax income. So I think at a very small price, by looking at this, if we do it strategically, we can build our tax base in other areas as well.
Well, they mentioned a couple of communities that have already put ordinances in place, and perhaps if you haven't already reached out to them, you could reach out and see what the difference is and how much, what the net loss was, if there was a net loss or net gain.
Yeah. Well, listen, at the end of the day, I'm all for less taxes, and I'm for the business. But I think when we're looking at this, we have to take a holistic approach to it, and we have to look at a balance. Yeah. And I would love to see us do a cost analysis to see, what the impact to the property taxes would be, And what I'm looking at is if we're going to cut $700,000 per se from our budget, or we're going to shift that cost over to our taxpayers, we need to understand what that means for our overall budget. So I was just wondering if we can kind of include that in our discussions. That would be great as well. Just
Yeah, I think there's no
sort of
intent,
under there.
yeah, there's no way the town can cut $700,000 from the tax revenue. I think
And
the
shame on
idea
us
is
if
to-
we could,
Yeah,
right?
so I think the idea is
Push it to
to,
anyone else,
it's one of the-
or push it to the property
Yeah.
owners. I mean, but if...
yeah, and that's not an option either.
If
Yeah.
you're able to offset it or give a slight reduction where it's more competitive, and you make that up in the another
Right.
component, that's what I'm saying. And if we can look at these other two towns that they mentioned, Lincoln and Narragansett, see what's happened there, and I think they're similar to us in different ways. Like one is like the summer and the restaurants and so forth, and the other is just more
Right.
every day. Of course, they have them all in one of those communities too.
And also, Chris and Julie, I'd like to understand maybe the burden that the businesses are doing.
Right.
Hey, if you could tier maybe the businesses to find out how many people are paying less than $1,000, or how many people are paying over certain tiers.
Right.
If they're paying over $400,000, like what are those companies? What are those big chunks? Because again, just to get back to that balance approach, if we're pushing that money, and I know Andy says that wouldn't be the case, but if we are going to have to push that burden over to the taxpayers, there's people on fixed incomes and things like that. I just want us to make sure we talk about all that and just make sure we take a
So you'd be happy to
balanced
know.
approach on that.
You'll be happy to know, and the administrator is going to share something in a second here, but you'll be happy to know that it seems that we're all exactly on the same page, is that we can't make this go away. But there are, you had mentioned burdens. In fact, the administrator and the treasurer and I spent half an hour, a couple of days ago talking about this, and that was part of the thought process.
Okay.
As Councilman Tiska brought this to light again, there's a lot of effort that goes into it. Has a less than fair feel to it because it's a self-reporting system, and that can have its negative consequences. But there is a lot of effort that goes into sometimes small dollars, but as you mentioned, it's about $760,000 a year. So that can't go away.
Right.
But can it be done in a better way? I think so. Mr. Administrator?
Thanks. I certainly think the council is onto something in the data that the tax collector gathered was that 500 businesses contribute $66,000, which means that's a lot of effort for those businesses for that amount of money. So certainly we're onto something. The other thing we learned is that every community collects tangible taxes on businesses. What I would like to get out to our businesses is that our property tax for commercial real estate is the same as our residential rate. There's only 4 communities in the state of Rhode Island that are less than Bristol. So it's a very attractive place to move your business. Same thing with our tangibles. There's only 3 communities that pay less than we do. So I think it's a tribute to our fiscal management. Also, we have the tax stabilization plan, which is available. And I know Chris Vitale has been getting out to the businesses, and he's encouraging some of them to take advantage of that stabilization plan. So.
Well put.
Yeah.
Chris is he's doing good things. He's getting out there, and
Chris can use that what you just said to promote the town of Bristol for businesses if it's like so cost effective to do business here.
yeah.
No, I'm serious. Like that would be good. I didn't realize those numbers. That's like amazing.
Has any fallen off? I know we have a limit in the criteria of the tax stabilization, so
don't
we could
believe
talk
so.
about it another time. Yeah.
So I heard Councilman Tiska say that at our next meeting, we could take a look at scheduling, and you've heard some great ideas or questions and concerns that the council has, and and again, I reiterate, we're all on the same page on this, which is great. Good. So at the next meeting, if we could take a look at scheduling this, are you comfortable with that?
I am, yep.
Perfect. All right. And I heard that as a motion?
Second.
Wonderful. Is there any discussion or any other additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Let's see. The next item is item I2, and this is from the chairman with a request to schedule a workshop to discuss proposed tax exemption for disabled veterans on September 25th.
It's a Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday. I thought it was far enough out. That's why I proposed
I'm okay.
that date. Does anybody have any objection to September 25th?
The only
I'm open.
issue that I have is that's a municipal court, so I'm not generally available on the fourth Tuesday evening. But I'm sure we could work something out.
Okay. That's okay?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
I
perfect.
just wanted you to be aware, that's all.
Okay.
Could I just ask one question in relation to the discussion just prior to this? I don't know if we would have all the information, if it'd be worthwhile to start to discuss the tangible tax, but it seems to me that, I don't know how long the disabled veterans question would take.
Initially, Mary, I thought it was going to be longer. It turns out I think we all may be in agreement also. So it may just be I thought it was extremely important. As you recall, we said we were going to set up a workshop, so I thought and I think we all do, think it's important to hear from Steve Scuba and representation of the veterans to give them the opportunity to reiterate their case. But I don't think that we're going to have an issue here at all. So
I'm just
it may
wondering
be a
if
great time to
I
schedule
wonder
it.
if we could
It's a good
start,
point.
like, even if it's just like hearing from the town side and then have like a public session afterwards or something like that, if we could.
Julie had actually suggested that also, and I was a little apprehensive at the time because I wanted to make sure we had enough time to speak. But I agree. If everybody's okay with that, we could attempt to schedule it as the second item on the 25th.
We've done a lot of research already.
Right. Because I think like some of the stuff like that, even just on the tangible tax, that Steve just mentioned and the work that you're already doing, like if you can bring that up to us and like any research that you've already done, and then we can always have another meeting with the businesses and with other people. I mean, at least.
We've already
that
got
way-
it scheduled.
Yeah.
Why not, right? I
Yeah.
agree.
And I think it's kind of like when we do the budget, if we can get to it, if it's just going to be like us talking about it, we can schedule it, but if we can't quite finish it up, then it wouldn't be like the public hearing part of it type of thing. Which
So-
I say that as, it sounds more formal. I mean, I'd rather have just like a roundtable discussion with all the businesses and so forth, but, if you can just at least tell us so we can start to think about it, that'd be great.
So is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
So, a second?
There's a motion and a second, and that motion and second was to schedule that September 25th workshop for the disabled veterans' proposed tax exemption, and also to start our discussions in regards to tangible tax. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And that's going to be the, were we going to do the interviews also? Were you thinking about that at 6?
That would be at 6.
So there's
Is
gonna-
everybody
so there'll
okay
be-
with 6 on that?
Yeah, 6 is fine.
And that, again, would be 6 p.m. to 7 for the interviews, and then 7 p.m. for the workshop.
Yep.
Okay. Let's be efficient.
Okay.
Tough to get scheduled. Yeah.
Let's see, the next item is the periodic report provided by Alan Klepper of the Bristol County Water Authority.
Motion to receive and file.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next is an executive session request, which I'm sure we'll take up at the conclusion of the public agenda. And now we're at the individual council member agenda items, beginning with the chairman.
So I'm going to just go back to where we started at the beginning of the meeting, and talking about those great improvements happening at on the schools, on our fire department, I drove by High Street, and there's some wonderful paint work happening over there. Things are looking much better, and they weren't looking bad. They're just looking much better. So this is a great continued improvement. Pickleball. I had somebody reach out to me about pickleball. We have courts on the Common. I talked to the administrator about it, and then ultimately to Tim Shaw, because Sarah Klein, our Parks and Rec director, is on vacation this week. And we're going to fix that court on the Common for the tennis court, and then also put some additional lines for pickleball. So it will not preclude tennis on that, but it'll allow for pickleball, and turns out there's a lot of people that play it and play it over there. And that's a great dual use without precluding either one. So, and that should be happening in the next couple of weeks, which is excellent. And I'll leave with a less positive. Our Sergeant-at-Arms, Archie Martin, lost his mom yesterday, and Michelle Martin's in our town clerk's office, is obviously your wife, and this council in the town, our hearts go out to them. We're so sorry. And also, our town administrator lost his aunt at the beginning of the month, so again, our hearts go out to you and your family, too. Thanks.
Mr. Sweeney.
I had the lucky option. I live across from the Common. I went over to the Courageous Kids. It's a summer camp for the week, and it's been put on by local churches that are in Warren and Bristol. I believe St. Michael's, the Heads program was involved. I believe Stone Hill Church as well. But it's based on the premise of bringing the community out. It's a really nice community activity, and there were 88 kids there, and they were divided up into dance, basketball, different activities or anything. And it's basically geared on taking the Common back with the police department. The police department was there, and it's designed to make the community, the Common, safer. I guess there was some issues going on there which I wasn't aware about, and along the short of it, they feel more comfortable by showing their presence. Well, it was an awesome camp. It was a lot of fun, and the chief, they're feeling more comfortable over there, and it's just a nice community-based summer program. So my hat's off to everybody involved in that, and it was a great program. Hopefully they'll bring it back next year. The Harbor Festival was a lot of fun this year. We had the monsoons open up, and it poured rain. So we were dodging in and out with clam boils all the way through, but I think 180 people showed up, and they lasted through the rain and everything, and it was beautiful. And the boardwalk looks great. And also, I just want to say, I was reading through the consent agenda, and Leogene Street came up. In regards to a flooding issue that's coming up, Diane, I just want to compliment you and the director and the town administrator, because I know Rusty Serper had reached out to me a while back on all this flooding that was happening on the street, and so I appreciate you guys taking action on that and moving forward with taking care of those flooding issues. So I appreciate that, because I know it's a real issue over there. But that's it. Thank you. You have a good night.
Mr. Tiska.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So this council does some pretty great things, starting with the Fireman's Tax Abatement Program to help recruit and retain our firefighters. Yeah. We are having a workshop to talk about our veterans' benefits. We're talking about the tangible tax. These things do cost the town, and while we are on that topic, and inspired by Chris Vitale's comments about looking at policies occasionally, I think it's important we look at the benefit we have for our seniors. We do have programs to help stabilize taxes, and I think that, I'm not sure when that was last looked at, but I think any good policy needs to be looked at, make sure that it's still relevant, and if there needs to be improvements or adjustments, we do that. And we do it proactively, not because someone's complaining, but because it's the right thing to do. So I'd like to add that to the next week's agenda, just to understand better how widely, if we could get any data on how widely that benefit is taken advantage of. Some of these great things in our community, as our administrator says, regarding commercial property taxes, we need to remind ourselves and others of that. And I believe that this may be something that falls within that category as well. So if we could do that next meeting, that would be great, Mr. Clerk.
And actually, what we're going to do, if you would, Councilman Tiska, is that moving forward on anything that we're adding at the end of the meeting, I'd like that in a motion with a second, so we can, and that way we can, if there's discussion, and make sure that we're all on the same page. Not that I have any disagreement on that, but I just want, if there's an action that's going to happen, then we should have a motion and a second from the council to add it to the agenda.
If I could make a motion that we add for discussion on the next agenda, a briefing on the senior citizens tax program in the town of Bristol, I'd appreciate it.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just that if we could have supporting documentation, that would be so helpful in regards to going into the discussion as much as possible, so we can answer and have a little bit of a discussion. That would be great. And again, to the town administrator, how does this work in the budget? Because again, we want to make sure we're not getting into financial crisis here, and I want to make sure we're balancing it all out.
So actually, and that's a good point, is the next meeting enough time, or would it be more appropriate? If it is, great, and if not,
we should have enough information for discussion. I'm not so sure if you're going to take it.
September 19th.
Well, we know what we know how much we take in from each age group. Just off the top of my head, I think it's a little over 600,000 are in that ballpark for the senior exemptions. 600,000, and they're broken up into three different groups. So we'll have enough data for a discussion.
Yeah, and I think the intent is not to bring us to financial crisis, far from it. I think it's important to make sure that we're all aware of some of these great programs that our community has.
And I apologize, my word maybe was a little off there. I just want to make sure we have that balance, that's all, you know.
No, I think it's a great point, and whether it's senior or it's veteran or it's fireman's tax, whatever we take away and we're not collecting there, we must collect from somewhere else. So there is no magic, and nor is it being suggested, but there is no magic place where it comes from. So if we're not collecting from someone, we must collect it from someone else. So, and I don't hear that. I hear review, not necessarily change in the motion. So,
But I would like to just make sure that, I agree with, you know.
Could I interrupt just because?
Of course.
You've got a motion to add this to the agenda, and you are discussing it, so could you?
Fair enough.
vote
That's
and-
great.
and
I thought you
continue
meant
the
to, I thought it
discussion?
was to add it to the next agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it
This
was...
agenda, okay.
This agenda, right.
Okay.
No, it was added to the next agenda.
it was to the next agenda. That's so you misheard me, but I think it's a great point that you made, which is that we had a little bit of a discussion here on that. So I would like a motion and a second, please, to add it to this agenda right now so we can have the discussion we're kind of having at right now.
Okay, I make that motion, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, let's continue.
So all I wanted to, all I wanted to say is I agree that we should look
Thank
at
you.
all of this, but we should look at it in a comprehensive way, because...
Agreed.
Which is what I think everyone's suggesting, because, I mean, I agree that we have to balance and all of that, but you need to think about, so we've got the tangible tax, we've got the veterans, we've got the seniors, and I think they're all important, but we need to look at it, because you may be able to adjust this certain age or something like that in small ways that impact everyone, and it doesn't really shift the burden too much onto other age groups. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do it comprehensively, and...
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, and the goal is to have this discussion when we're having others, because if we want to balance it, we can't have a discussion about veterans this week and seniors 6 months from now. I think they're all in the same context, and I think it's valuable to look at them in a reasonable, similar time, or in a near time period. Yeah.
So I think, like,
that's
the
why
other thing that maybe comes up, I mean, I think, if you don't mind, excuse me, just for any of council members or staff to bring up any of these issues, because I think what will probably have to happen is sometime after the September 25th meeting, we're going to end up having like another workshop or 2 or 3 on this topic. So, I mean, some people have talked about like homestead exemptions and other things. I'm not promoting one or the other. I don't know if they're a good idea or they're a bad idea. I'm just simply saying that if we're going to look at that, or people suggest those ideas, that we kind of look at, and the staff has the time to look at all of the research out there and figure out where we go from there. Like, you know, just the thing that pops into my head, and I'm not making a judgment on any of this. I just want people to understand that, because I'm just sort of thinking out loud here. For example, you know, and I don't think this is the case, but I mean, people are working a lot longer than they used to. So, you know, so those, when do some of these exemptions kick in? Like, can they be put off a year or two because people are not, you know, retiring as early as they are? That type of thing. And so I think there's a lot of research that you need to do on just demographically, like what the town looks like demographically and so forth, you know, and what the projections may be slightly. So, I mean, I think, Diane, you have some of that information probably from the comp plan, but I think that all factors into what we need to look at.
Mary, I think you're spot on. I think that if we do this in a silo, then, and I also have to realize that we're looking at a lot of our staff right here.
Right.
So we take them out of their game and we put them into something else, then they can't do what they normally do, and that's a really important point, too. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. Let me be clear. I'm not suggesting that. But I am saying that if we spend time over here, then we can't do what we normally do. And that's a really important point.
Then we have to get that to the study.
Just to
Study.
pick up on Mary's point, I think we should also look at, like you're saying, everything as far as school budget as well. I know we know that that's coming up, and we know that's going to be another big nugget too. Sorry. That's going to be another big nugget out of our budget. So also making sure we're looking at that as well and everything as part of it. So just to segue on to Mary, that's all I had.
Okay. So, did you want to add something, Chris?
Sorry.
Gosh,
I just want to make sure that prepared for the next council meeting.
There's no
so-
possible way you could be, sir.
Are we holding off this comprehensive review to the council meeting, to the workshop, or are we planning on doing those together? Because I think we were talking about a few different.
I believe the gist the way that I took it was, as we are talking about tangibles, was to start the conversation and talk about what we need to almost ask the questions or talk about the questions that we need to ask, and then, as it's been talked about here, make sure that we're doing this holistically and not take the one and then take the next one again, silo it out. So.
Okay, but I heard that it was all going to that other meeting.
No, I
That's-
think that the issue about the seniors would go to the next council meeting, just as the tangible tax property.
Correct.
me,
Yep, that was my
came
intent.
today.
No,
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about the 25th.
Oh.
Do we have...
So I'll tell you what, why don't we do
Just
this?
starting
At our
on the
next
25th, I
meeting,
think, yeah.
let's have it so we could have some basic information, maybe a comparative about the other communities and how they're handling it. And then also, as what has already been mentioned, Diane has some great demographic information about who it would affect and how. Mary brought up a couple of points, too, of people work longer. Maybe they don't want to work longer, but they're working
Maybe we
longer.
have no choice.
How does that look and all of that? So if we move things around, if it's appropriate at all. So let's take a look at what we're doing. As the administrator pointed out a little bit earlier, there's a lot of things that we were talking about the tangible tax. We're in a really good place already. That doesn't mean we can't be better. But so we may find that there's a lot of things that what we're doing right now is excellent, and maybe that just needs to be reiterated. So at our next meeting, if you could come with how do we look in comparison to other communities, like communities, generally speaking, we don't have to go crazy with it, and then we can decide what we want to do as a next step. Is there a next step we want to take at our next meeting?
think
Is
to-
everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I think to just clarify the way I think about this, maybe to help Lou, is that, on the 25th is already scheduled for the veterans. So now the tangible tax is going to get started on that. But it's not going to get finished that day. It's going to be too much information. So maybe some of this may come into play, it may not, on the 25th. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's going to take several, I think it's going to be several workshop sessions in order for any of this to be resolved. I think we're just getting started. Am I wrong in thinking about it that way?
You are
or-
correct in
Yeah, I
thinking
think it's
that
going
way.
to take several workshops.
I guess just my confusion, and I apologize for this, I had it that everything was going to end up on the 25th. Now you would like to have it on the 19th.
The senior portion of it.
Senior portion of it all.
Just the
Just the senior
The
portion.
senior
yes.
portion, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like the administrator...
But the tangible tax, veterans, is on the 25th.
That is correct.
All right.
As I agree with everyone, at the end of the day, our firefighters are important, our veterans are important, our seniors are important, education's important, infrastructure's important, our departments are important, our festivals, last night's coming up, is important. Everything
the
costs
rest of
money, and
everybody in between is-
every year, the town of Bristol, addresses a budget. So at the end of the day, it's all numbers, and as the administrator said, when we holistically look at this, and like you mentioned, if you want to compare to other towns what they have on the books, it's going to come at the end of an analysis, that's all it takes. It comes to that number. And then that number gets plugged in when you make the decisions every year in your budget of how you balance that. So, but I think it's important that if you're going to address one, address them all once and for all. So it's out there.
All right, so go ahead.
I'll try to finish up my prerogative, maybe, unless there's anything else on this topic that needs to be.
Just to remind everybody that we're in the middle of a revow.
Oh, yeah.
So those
Thank you
numbers
for
also
that
reflect.
also.
So, please.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't, have another meeting, in the sub-meeting to the meeting, so I appreciate you
You have
entertaining.
another group that you want to add to the agenda?
Let me see here. Actually, just regarding my colleague's comment about education, there is an opportunity to start understanding that process or in that number at our JFC meeting, which is the Joint Finance Committee hearing for the Bristol Warren Regional School District on September 5th.
Oh,
So
September.
we'll start to contextualize that big number as well in that process, and hopefully get that ball rolling towards next budget session. The last item I have is just regarding public safety. And I think we all see things from time to time as we're walking, biking, driving around town that we say, wow, that might be an accident. And I think it's important that people understand the best way to deal with that. And I think it's to call the town administrator. No?
No. If it's an emergency, it's...
No, not an emergency, just an improvement. So, for example, I drive on Papa Squash Road every day. I see baby carriages and walking with cars going around them into oncoming traffic coming this way. I think that there are traffic patterns, there are corners, there are light timings, which I think could lead to pedestrian crosswalks, for example, that could lead to accidents. And I think it's important, maybe you could guide us on what could a resident do to inform, suggest improvements that could be considered and then potentially acted upon.
For improvements, not in an emergency
Nope, not an
situation,
emergency,
like an open manhole.
Yep.
I try to be as transparent as possible, and the problem is, I'm not here every day. So I've gotten instant messages about safety issues, and that needs to go directly to the police department or during the day, DPW, so that they're addressed. I just needed to make that clear. But certainly improvements, that might require a study or, an evaluation, you can certainly call the town hall. My email is on our website. My email is best. That way I have a permanent written record that's documented and saved. So email is best. Phone messages is fine also. But certainly we want to hear whatever suggestions are out there to improve safety, to keep our children safe and our communities secure. So certainly,
I think
I'd love to hear it.
Inspiring a see something, say something approach to safety within our community can save lives. And so I think we should continue to talk about that and make sure people feel that they can do that and have a place that it can be directed to.
And I just want to add one thing, too, is on our website, if you go right to the homepage, there is a button that says Report a Concern, and there are different options that residents can choose. So certainly, if you don't know where to direct your inquiry, you can always send it there, and the staff here can forward it to the appropriate department.
And I think that's a valuable piece of information right there. Thank you, Chris. And then last one is congratulations to all the parents that made it through the summer. School starts next week. So congratulations, and we look forward to getting back into a routine. So with that, I conclude my prerogative. Thanks.
I disagree. I love having my kids home, and I don't want them to go back. So,
Ms. Perella.
Maybe it could be the difference in the ages between your kids? So, as was mentioned, the last night is coming up. It seems like it was just August 1st, like about a day or two ago, and now it's almost Labor Day weekend in another week. So that would be on the Sunday night of Labor Day weekend, the concert with the Rhode Island Philharmonic down at the Independence Park, and that starts at what, 5? 6 p.m. At 6? Okay.
There's an opening act, David Marshall,
Okay.
and then the Philharmonic is at 6.
At 6, okay. So that's the other. I also wanted to just commend everyone, all the volunteers and the Harbor Commission, our Harbor Master's Office for the terrific Harbor Festival. And everyone did a great job. And I speak to Tim and some of the other volunteers. It's just started pouring rain. We thought it was going around us, and then just around 4:30 or so, it came down in buckets, and people came, and everyone was under the tent, and it worked out. I mean, there was a little bit of a lull so that most of the food could get served, but everyone did an awesome job with those circumstances, and I think that it's a great event for people to come down and growing every year, and I think that we have some vendors, and we have the blessing of the fleet, which is always really nice, a stuffy contest, and then the clam boil and steak fry. So it's really a nice event, and I encourage people to come to it. And I commend everybody who did come and didn't just say, I'm not going because it's starting to pour. Then I also just wanted to ask the town administrator, Steve, if you could give an update on the Wally School project. I know that they were doing like asbestos removal and some of the other like detail projects as the sidewalk is closed off in sections and so forth and so on. I mean, I know the big picture of what you're doing, but...
Sure. Well, it's one of our prominent buildings, and we're wrapping up work on the soffits, all new copper gutters. The inside of the building was abated. The asbestos tiles were taken out, and we've applied for a number of grants. In fact, we are waiting to hear back from one of them to hopefully to get an elevator in the building and do some mechanical upgrades. So.
Very good. Thank you.
What was that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Mr. Stewart.
Coming to the end of the summer, next meeting will be September. The kids will be in school. I'd like to thank Director McBride and the administrator, the conclusion of another summer of the road program. And I know we always start, we have a preliminary plan all for next year, potentially, so we have to just have an updated meeting regarding the roads going forward and addressing any things that have to be tidied up. I'm just going to keep it quick. Our condolences to Sergeant-at-Arms Archie Martin's mother, and also thank Mike Davis, all of us here that showed up tonight, and everyone tuning in at home. I hope everyone had a safe summer, and have a good night.
Town Administrator agenda items.
Well, we're doing a lot of things. Great going to the Community Development Department and building official for their congratulations from the governor on e-permitting, online permits. It's going well. Okay, good. Best wishes to the family starting the school year, and I think I want to have the police chief say a few words regarding security and safety and how they're working together at the police department with the school district. But I'm not done under my prerogative after that, so I'm going to...
Okay, so we'll just jump right into it. Tonight started orientation for the freshmen at Mount Hope High School. So the freshmen were invited there with their parents, school resource officer, and many of the staff from the high school was there. Just to inform the council, the citizens, parents, students, we at the police department have been regularly meeting with the superintendent's office, to include himself and I, along with the committee, with regards to safety concerns, to tighten up the schools a little bit more than they have been in the past. I will tell you that I'm satisfied with the progress that's in place. However, we'll continue to move forward, assuring that those schools are going to be safe at all times. As you know, we have a strong presence of police around those schools, and that is just to assure the safety to the students and the staff. Working hand in hand with the staff there to make sure that those schools are locked at all times, that upon arrival that the officers are there to make sure that vehicles traveling there are traveling at a good rate of speed. So I guarantee you that we're doing everything we can, and we're going to continue to do as much as we can, working with the school department to assure that those schools are going to be as safe as possible. They have taken several steps, and there's a few more that need to be taken, but I can assure you that the school department, through the superintendent's office, is working very aggressively. I met with him last week. They're applying for a couple of grants, and it looks like they're shovel-ready, as Councilman Stewart and the chairman always say. So with any luck, as soon as they get the green light, we'll be able to put those other needed things that both the police and the school department feel would be in the best interest to continue to harden up a few little soft spots we have. However, I can assure you that we've identified them, and that's what we're concentrating on. There's visibility around those schools every day, whenever the schools are in session, and even after school, when there's after-school activities, officers are assigned their regular beats. They're in and out of those parking lots. They meet with the staff. I have a school resource officer that reports daily to the command staff, telling them any type of events that's coming up or any concerns we have. And we have been working with the Warren Police to make sure that they're doing the same there, which the chief and his staff has assured me that they are doing as far as the Kickamuit Middle School, UCole School, because they're all students from our district. There's not one student that's more important than the other, and there's not one staff member that's more important than the other. That being said, if there is anything out there that we need to know, please don't hesitate. Give us a call. That's what we're there for, 24/7, and I assure you that does not fall on deaf ears. We look at it. Doing the same thing down the south end. The university will be coming back this week. I've already met with the director down there, and we've had some good conversations, and we're going to continue to keep the lines of communication open. So that being said, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief. I know the chief is vague in general, but I will say that there were ongoing trainings there on the school properties, and the assessments were reviewed, the bus routes. But as we talked about earlier, if there's information, please forward it, and any suggestions relating to safety, call the police department, call myself. We'd really like to hear any suggestions. Some good news, tremendous news is we received a grant of $491,000 for sidewalks on the lower end of Bayview Avenue. It's a grant that Chris Vitale applied for, a CDBG grant, Community Development Block Grant. Good work. And we're hoping that we'll be able to leverage some of our own funds to add some sidewalks. This is for the lower end of Bayview Avenue, but it's a sizable amount of money, $500,000. So
nice job.
Yeah. As the Director of Public Works stated, a lot of significant work is going on, about to start. Tan Yard, the sewer water pollution control facility, there's some drainage work going on there. An old storage tank is being removed. The sanitation system's being improved. Dig and replace of old sewer lines throughout town, Leahy Drive area, Soames Drive, Fairview Avenue. Significant amount of construction that's set to begin any day now. Last night, not this weekend, next weekend, Sunday, 5 p.m. Hopefully we'll see everyone there. And other than that, I think we're making progress and things are good.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Of course.
Just a reminder, before we meet again, as you say, there will be the statewide primary, which is on the 12th of September. And the town, through its Board of Canvassers, is opening up all of the polling places. So if voters have questions about where they should be going, they can certainly contact my office. We will be rolling out a full town-wide implementation of the new poll pads, which is a big technological improvement for the state. It's going statewide. The last time we participated in a pilot program. This time it's going to be everywhere. Board of Canvassers is conducting its training sessions. Some of this training has been transferred back to us from the state, so we're going to be doing that ourselves for the poll workers. And certainly if anybody has questions relating to the election, they are encouraged to call my office.
Lou, you can go online and type in, go to the Secretary of State's website, correct? And put in your name and address.
There's actually a link from our own website.
So you can go to our website if you want to know where you're supposed to vote, and put your name and address in it. It'll tell you where you're supposed to vote.
Absolutely, and you can even get a sample ballot if you'd like to see that.
Okay. That's a great thing to do, is if you're not sure what's going on and where to vote and who's running and all that. Take a moment and go on.
Luke, I think you just, if you couldn't mention, or I'll mention, that the 12th is a Wednesday.
Oh, yeah,
So
I was going to mention that, too.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I took better notes for you than I did for me.
Okay.
But it is a little bit unusual that the primary will be held on Wednesday this time due to some religious holidays that are occurring that change the schedule. So it is a Wednesday, so everybody who's used to voting on Tuesday will be going one day later. Again, there is the information is available here if anybody does want to call, and we're happy to provide that to them. And as the chairman pointed out, there are lots of online options for determining just where everything is and how everything works.
But as the clerk pointed out, if you're not an online person, give us a call, and we'll answer all of your questions. Mr. Solicitor.
We now need a motion to convene into executive session pursuant to 42465A5 regarding lease or disposition of real property, Gooding Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good night, everyone.